A very good morning to all the viewers and the webinar team. This is A. Ram Prasad, Principal Telangana Model School, Arsipuram, Sangareddy District. I have the privilege to announce completion of 300 webinars for intermediate second year students with the session which we are going to stream now. The webinar team started the journey on 29 June 2020 to provide quality education during the pandemic through online mode. It was Model School Society which swung into action before all the education institutions and stand as pioneer in our online education during the COVID time. A team of principals volunteered and shouldered the responsibility of engaging inter-second year students who were deprived of classroom transaction during the pandemic. The team had put in the best possible efforts to reach out the students when all the education institutions were closed. The total subscribers and the viewership for our YouTube channel motivated us to continue our efforts and reach the 300 milestone today. On completion of 300 webinar sessions for inter-second year students, I sincerely place my acknowledgements to all the resource persons, that is principals and PGTs, who had spared their time and industry during COVID holidays, prepared and presented qualitative sessions. As the coordinator of webinars team, I would like to appreciate and state that the student and the model school family is indebted to the hosts of our channels, Mrs. K.V. Shailaja, Principal, Telangana Model School, Jinaram, and Mrs. B.D.R.S. Manjari, Principal, Telangana Model School, Rego, who had worked more than all beyond the working hours and without following any daytime or nighttime schedule. I commend the wonderful compilation and coordination done by Mrs. N. Sridevi, Principal, TSMS Shankarampet R, who took the pain to compile the data from all the principals and even beyond the working hours or beyond the evening hours, providing the data to prepare the pamphlet for the day. Undoubtedly, the effort and the service rendered by Mrs. Polu Sridevi, Principal, Telangana Model School, Pudur, and Mrs. V. Vijayalakshmi, Principal, Telangana Model School, Narsapur, for their contribution in making the journey successful. It is Dr. A. Venugopal Reddy, who had overseen the functioning of the webinars team and facilitated accomplishment of all administrative tasks. Certainly, he needs a pat for all the effort and for all the success what we have achieved today. I thank all the subject coordinators who had facilitated presentation of quality content through our channel. I acknowledge the support of all the principals in our efforts. It's the guidance and support of Dr. Sri A. Satyanarayana Reddy Garu, Additional Director, Telangana Model Schools, and Sri Rajiv Garu, Joint Director, Model Schools, who helped us in conduct of webinar sessions. I express my sincere gratitude for their valuable suggestions and directions. I thank one and all who had given us the support, rendered the service, and extended their cooperation for completing 300 webinar sessions and reaching the 300 milestone today. Thank you all. Have a great day. A very good morning to all the viewers and the webinar team. This is A. Ram Prasad, Principal, Telangana Model School, Ramachandrapuram, Sangareddy District. While continuing the sessions for intermediate students, I have the privilege to introduce Mrs. Shaitaz Begum, postgraduate teacher in political science from Telangana Model School, Dhanwada, Narayanpet District. She has a vast experience in teaching at various education institutions, and she has a wonderful academic record. She has already conducted so many sessions for intermediates second year as well as first year. So the session which she is going to conduct today is an important session, India and the world. So as a citizen of any nation, the citizen should know what and where that particular country stands in relation to other countries. So we need this particular topic is not only useful for your annual examinations for intermediate, that will be useful for all competitive examinations also. So the foreign policy, the relations with other countries play a vital role in development of any nation. I look forward for all the students to make optimum use of this particular session. Over to Mr. Shaitaz Begum for the session.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, viewers. I'm Mrs. Shaitaz Begum, PGT Political Science, Dhanwada, TSMS Dhanwada, Narayanpet District. I welcome you all for this session. I'm here again to conduct one more session, interesting session of course, for senior intermediate, and the topic is India and the world. So let us begin this session without any delay. So before we proceed to this session, let us discuss briefly why knowing the relation of India with other countries of the world is necessary. As a citizen of India or as a citizen of any nation, it is very important for us to know what are the relations which our country is sharing with the other countries of the world, isn't it? Like, I'll just give you an example, students. Now, as we human being, and the famous philosopher Aristotle quoted that man is a social animal and cannot live in isolation, isn't it? We cannot live in isolation, we cannot live alone. We need people around us, we need to form society, isn't it? We need to form different organizations. So when we live in an organized groups in a society or in a world, it is mandatory for us to maintain good relations with the other countries. And like how, for example, you stay in a colony in your society, you maintain good relations with your neighbors as well, isn't it? It is essential for us. When we look at them, we give a smile at them, we often talk to them, we greet them on their festivals, we give them good wishes, we exchange our good dishes, isn't it? This is a general example which I have put it here to make you understand why it is necessary for us to maintain good relations with our neighbors. So here also, India being a part of the world, it has to maintain good relations, diplomatic relations with the other world countries. A person cannot live in isolation. It is mandatory that we need support, assistance, and cooperation of our fellow human beings. Every state needs to have some relations maintained and protected, maintained to protect its identity and to achieve the goals and to take the nation to a developed stage. So to establish and to maintain good relations with other states of the world, we need to have a well conceived foreign policy. A well conceived foreign policy has to be drafted to make good relations, to follow those foreign policy and to tie up with the other nations of the world. So in this session, we are going to discuss foreign policy. We are going to discuss what is India's foreign policy, objectives of foreign policy, and what are the other factors, determinants, which have an effect on foreign policy. So let us first understand what is foreign policy. Just now we have discussed why it is important to have a foreign policy, isn't it? So now let us understand, let us discuss what is actually a foreign policy. What does a foreign policy means? A foreign policy can be defined as it implies the formulation and implementation of a group of principles. Listen carefully. It implies the formulation. It formulates and also implements. Not only making, but also implementation. Implementation of what? Of a group of principles which shape the behavior pattern of state. State means your country. While negotiating with other states to protect or further its vital interest. So here some rules, some principles are formulated and implemented, and why they are implemented and when they are used while we are negotiating with the other nations of the world to protect our country and to proceed on to the development stage. So in fact, in short, we can say that foreign policy are general objectives that guide the activities and relationships of one state in its interactions with other states. These are principles which guide the relationship of one state and other state. The main objective of foreign policy is to use diplomacy, while talking, while meeting, or while making agreements and treaties. Foreign policy, it solves international problems. It tried to keep problems from developing into conflicts. Before they developed into conflicts, major conflicts, the foreign policy tackles the issues. And also, foreign policy is very important to make the nation progress. The Ministry of External Affairs, also known as Foreign Ministry, it is the agency of the government which is responsible for the conduct of foreign relations in India. Ministry of External Affairs, also known as Foreign Ministry. This agency of the government is responsible for the conduct of foreign relations in India. So in short, foreign policy. What is foreign policy? In short, if you want to remember this, you can just remember it in these words. It is a government strategy in dealing with other nations of the world. It is the policy, it is a strategy of the government which it uses when it is negotiating with other states. It is mandatory for us to maintain good relations, because in today's world, no nation is economically so self-sufficient. We have interdependence of state. So we need to follow a well-conceived policy, a well-drafted foreign policy when we are dealing with the other nations of the world. So now let us discuss the objectives of foreign policy. A state's foreign policy must have some objectives that are products of its national interest. That means the foreign policy, when it is drafted or when it is formulated, it has to keep in mind the interest of the citizen, the well-being of the citizens of the country. The common objectives of any state are maintaining national integrity. To maintain and protect the national integrity of the country will be the first objective of the state's foreign policy. National integrity is that awareness of citizens, and it brings the interest, and it brings the feeling of being one. National integrity, the feeling of being one, making the nation coming into one stand. So the foreign policy has lot of responsibility to maintain the national integrity of a nation. It means that though we are different, we belong to different religion, different regions, and speak different languages, but we recognize the fact that we all are one. So it is the foreign policy which takes up measures to protect the national integrity of the country, protecting its sovereignty. This is also one of the main objectives of a foreign policy. What is sovereignty, students? It is the supreme power. It is a supreme power, or it is an authority to govern a state, or a state to become self-governing. That is sovereignty. So here, the sovereignty, it gives the supreme authority for the state to govern itself. Not only giving authority, but it also limits the powers. So protecting from external invasion, external aggression, and protecting that self-governing is the major role of state's foreign policy. It plays a vital role in protecting the sovereignty of a country. Promoting economic interest. Foreign policy acts as a developmental tool while dealing the economic area. And while dealing with the economic area and while promoting the economic interest of the state, it deals with certain factors like promoting the trade promotion, trade and commerce of a country, investment policies of a country, and also economic and financial negotiations. All these are kept in mind while the foreign policy is drafted. Maintaining world order. What is a world order? Like how we maintain the peace in our state, internal peace in our state. In the same way, maintaining peace and security at international level also is very, very essential. To save the world countries from the scourge of war, it is very essential to maintain world order. So a state's foreign policy is drafted and formulated in such a way that world order, world peace is maintained for a long time. In fact, the establishment of United Nations organization was for same reason. It was established to save the world countries from the scourge of war in the year 1945. So these are the objectives of a state's foreign policy. Now let us look out the determinants on which the foreign policy is. There are several factors. The foreign policy of a state is determined by several factors. They are classified into three categories: general, internal, and external. There are several determinants, and these determinants are classified into three categories: general, internal, and external. Let us discuss them briefly. Let us first discuss the general determinants of the foreign policy. Sovereignty and integrity of a state. Every state keeps in mind the sovereignty and integrity of state while formulating the foreign policy. A state must protect its territory, property, and lives of the citizen. Apart from that, it also sees to it that it caters to the needs of the people, caters to the needs of the citizen, and tackles the present situation. So compulsorily, a state has to keep in mind the sovereignty and integrity while formulating the foreign policy. Interdependence of state. This is also one of the general determinants of foreign policy. All states, all countries in the world, either rich or poor, big or small, they need to depend on one another for one or more needs, isn't it? You all know that trade is common. We have world trade, isn't it? So import, export, there are different things for which we need to depend on the other states. So such interdependence on other countries or states may lead to major conflicts. So a wise foreign policy strives to achieve diplomatic relations, and these misunderstandings will be prevented if the foreign policy of the state is wise and tackles all these issues. Promotion of national interest. A foreign policy always sees to it that it caters to the needs of its citizens, and the national interest of the state differ from time, location, or circumstances. Different situation needs different solutions to handle. Every state needs to safeguard the national interest of its citizens. Through an effective foreign policy, this can be achieved. The foreign policy must be effective so that it can tackle all these needs and take the nation to the developmental level. So now let us discuss the internal determinants. Geography, history, population, economic factors. These are the 4 internal determinants of a foreign policy. Let us first discuss geography. Geography, you might have studied geography in your social studies, isn't it, students? What did you study in geography? You study, yes, you have studied physical features, you have studied about environment, isn't it? So geography is nothing but the physical features, climate, resources, the neighborhood, that is the boundaries of a nation. All these physical characteristics, they have an impact on foreign policy because they have an impact on quality and life of a nation. The kind of resources, natural resources present in the country, it also has a lot of impact. So geography of a place plays an important role in determining the foreign policy internal, because it is not out, it is an internal determinant related to that particular place. History, what do you mean by history, students? It is the study of past, isn't it? The history of a country describes its culture or behavior. The policy makers, the foreign policy makers, they often formulate the policy according to the ideals, values, and virtues that are inherited from the past, that we got from the past. Based on that, the policy makers, they formulate the foreign policy so as that it has to, it has to suit to all the citizens of that nation, and the nation culture and character is reflected in the foreign policy, The third important internal determinant is population. The size and the nature of population will have the impact on foreign policy. The size and nature of population. If the people are well educated, skilled, healthy, and strong, definitely they'll be able to make or bring identity to their nation, and making the nation have or making the nation nurture more well. Economic factors. In today's world, no country is economically self-sufficient. Interdependence became the need of today. We have to depend on each other for different things. So a careful and articulated foreign policy, it caters to the needs of the people, and it also furthers the economic interest of the nation. So economic factors needs to be kept in mind while drafting the foreign policy of a country. Now let us discuss the external determinants. We have discussed general determinants. We have discussed internal determinants of a foreign policy. Now let us discuss the external determinants. External, the term itself tells that it is not within the country. It is outside. External determinants. These are 3: internal organizations, international affairs of other states, and other elements. International organizations, they also play a vital role. International organizations like UNO, World Labour Organization, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, such international organizations, they play a vital role. A nation cannot formulate its foreign policy without keeping in mind the point of view of other countries. Only on internal determinants, foreign policy cannot be formulated, because foreign policy itself means that it is a policy which we are framing to deal with other countries of the world. So mandatorily, external determinants, they play a very important role. So the activities of international organization, they influence the foreign policy of the state. Various international laws, treaties, and agreements are implemented by these international organizations. Whether to join these treaties or not, this all are decided by the foreign policy of the state. Whether to be a part of these treaties or not, these decisions are taken by the foreign policy. International affairs of other state. No country can ignore the point of view of other country. As we are living in the same world, we have to respect the point of view of other countries. A state has to keep in mind the interest of other states while drafting its foreign policy. There are other elements also, external elements, which determine the foreign policy, like external environment, regional environment, political, economic, and global issues, and power structure in the world. That is the status of the country in the world, how it deals with the political, economic, and global issues, what stand the country takes to protect or to sort out the global issues. All these are the other external determinants which has to be kept in mind while drafting the foreign policy. Now, let us discuss foreign policy of India. Foreign policy of India. Most Indians agree that its first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, had defined a unique foreign policy for India at the very dawn of its independence. Since the 1990s, though, the challenge for the Indian leaders has been to reinterpret Nehru's ideas to suit the new political context that had confronted it. The foreign policy of India plays a vital role in maintaining the relationships with other countries of the world. The first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, he played a very crucial role in setting the foreign policy. He exercised profound influence in the formulation and implementation of India's foreign policy from 1946 to 1964. So when when he was the main person among with his teammates to draft the foreign policy, the three major objectives which were kept in mind was to preserve the hard-earned sovereignty, that is the supreme power of India of self-rule. We all know the fact that we were under the Britishers for many years, more than 200 years. Just then we got independence, and we have to preserve that independence. We have to preserve that freedom. So that is why the first objective was to preserve the hard earned. It was not easy to get back independence from Britishers. It claimed the lives of millions of Indian freedom fighters to have us or to get us free. So the main objective was to preserve the hard-earned sovereignty, to protect the territorial integrity, and to promote rapid economic development. To protect sovereignty, to protect the integrity and unity of India, and also to promote economic development, rapid economic development, because we were under the British, they did not develop our country. So now it was high time for us to become a developing country. Nehru wished to achieve these objectives through a strategy of non-alignment. In this session, we are also going to discuss what do we mean by non-alignment. So now let us discuss the basic objectives of India's foreign policy. Non-alignment, Panchshir, anti-imperialism, protection and promotion of national interest, maintenance of world peace and security, friendly relations with all the nations, ending of imperialism and colonialism, end of racial discrimination, close relations with Asian and African countries, faith and disarmament. These are certain basic objectives of India's foreign policy. When India's foreign policy was formulated, All these accepts were involved in it. Now let us discuss this briefly one by one. First, let us discuss non-alignment. Non-alignment. It has been regarded as the most important feature of India's foreign policy. What is non-alignment? Non-alignment aims to maintain national independence in foreign affairs by not joining any military alliance formed by the USA and Soviet Union in the aftermath of the Second World War. In simple terms, you can say that non-alignment means not aligning with any of the superpowers, any of the power blocks, East Power Bloc or Communist power blocks. India did not join any of the superpowers. Non-alignment was neither neutrality nor involvement nor isolationism. It was a dynamic concept which meant not committing to any military bloc but taking an independent stand on international issues according to the merits of each case. So listen carefully here, children. Non-alignment was neither neutrality, that doesn't mean that India is neutral, nor it is not involvement, nor isolationism. Isolationism is it is being free or just being not bothered about the political issues of the other countries. Here, India, apart from not joining any of the military blocs, it wants to take a stand on international issues which would be a cause of concern for the world countries. The policy of non-alignment won many supporters in the developing countries as it provided an opportunity to them for protecting their sovereignty as also retaining their freedom of during the tension-ridden Cold War period. So many supporters, many countries like this concept of non-alignment. They followed and they became the member of NAM, Non-Alignment Movement. We will discuss NAM in the upcoming session. The next important objective for India's foreign policy is Panchshir. This is the most important feature of India's foreign policy. India adopted this feature on 29th May 1954 due to an agreement between India and China. The agreement was signed between the then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and the then Prime Minister of China, Zhou Enlai. The agreement was signed between India and China. Panchshir means 5 principles of conduct. Panch, 5. So what does it mean? It means 5 principles of conduct. Let us see what are those 5 principles of conduct or behavior. Mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. That is, these two countries, it is not common for nations, these two countries, they have to respect each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. That means attacking the other country and taking away the territory is banned. Here, it should not be done. Respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Mutual non-aggression. The issues should be, if at all any issues pop up between these two countries, the issues or the conflicts should be sorted out using non-violent methods. War should not be the solution for sorting out the issues. Mutual non-aggression. Mutual non-interference, not interfering in internal affairs of each other. That is, neither China should interfere in the internal affairs of India, and India also would not interfere in the internal affairs of China. Mutual non-interference in the internal affairs. Equality and cooperation for mutual benefit. That means doors are open for trade. Doors are open for trade, and the equality and cooperation should sustain for benefit of the people and for development of the nation. Peaceful coexistence should live peacefully according to this agreement. That means they should not arise any situation in which war should be the answer. Issues should be sorted out using the non-violent method, because wars always bring destruction. So wars should be avoided. The next important basic objective of India's foreign policy is anti-imperialism and anti-colonialism. Anti-colonialism. What is this imperialism, students? It is a policy of extending control over foreign entities either through direct or indirect political or economic intervention. That is, control of the natural resources of other countries. Colonialism, India was a colony of British, isn't it? That means in this system, a state claims sovereignty over territory and resources beyond its borders and displacing or ruling its local population. That is, the weaker nations are controlled by the strong nations, and while controlling, they take away the sovereignty and also the natural resources of that particular state. That is called colonialism. So India neither supports imperialism nor colonialism. It is anti-imperialism and anti-colonialism. Next, promotes international peace. International peace. While drafting the foreign policy, one of the major objectives of India was to maintain international peace, promoting peace, friendship, and cooperation. Promoting peace, friendship, and cooperation among the countries of the world. And Article 51 of Indian Constitution directs the state to work for international peace and security. According to Article 51 of Indian Constitution, it directs the government to work for international peace and security. Special relations with Asian countries. Special relations with the countries of Asian continents. The foreign policy, India's foreign policy comprises the idea of developing special relations with Asian countries. It strives to promote unity among the Asian countries by organizing several conferences and also arriving at various treaties which will benefit the Asian countries and which will also promote economic growth and which will also promote good relations among the Asian countries. India wishes to make Asia free from the dominance of the big powers, free from the dominance of big powers. So in this regard, India has taken the initiative in formation of SARC. SARC is an acronym which stands for South Asian Association Regional Cooperation. South Asian Association Regional Cooperation. This was established to foster economic growth and to bring a common interest and also to maintain political stability among the member countries. Look East policy. This is also very important objective, students. Look East policy. So a change in the direction of India's policy in 1992. It began in 1992, and this policy was launched by the former Prime Minister of India, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. According to this, the main intention was to reach out the Southeast Asian neighbors, and the basic thrust was to renew to revive the contacts among the Southeast Asia countries. This would enable India to develop economic cooperation and to deepen their role in the development of world countries. And not only that, it wanted to secure a strategic defense cooperation by changing their policy towards Southeast Asian neighbors. The next important feature of India's foreign policy is disarmament. To war. If we want war, it is using armaments, that is weapons. If we want peace, it is through disarmament. Now, what does this disarmament means? Disarmament, in the broader sense, means the total abolition of arms, that is armaments of all types, may be conventional or as well as nuclear weapons. Total abolition, complete, not using nuclear weapons. Abolition, removal. India's foreign policy is always committed to removal of conventional and nuclear disarmament. India aims at completely waving away nuclear disarmament. India wants to use the nuclear energy for peace purposes. India always favored the use of nuclear energy for peace purposes, not for destruction. The disarmament is needed for the world peace and security, isn't it, children? War is not the solution for all the problems. Because we live in a world when many countries are in a developmental stage. Many countries are already developed and many countries are still underdeveloped. So the countries, they follow their own procedures to make themselves develop and to make themselves compete with the other countries of the world. So in this process, it may be a threat to the world security. So the disarmament is needed for the world peace and security, and this is also the main purpose of United Nations. The main purpose of the formation of United Nations organization, which was formed in 1945, was to save the world countries from the scourge of war. So disarmament is needed to reduce the danger of war and also to strengthen the world peace and security. To strengthen the world peace and security, disarmament is needed. Abolition of nuclear weapons, conventional and nuclear weapons, that is called disarmament, not using nuclear weapons for destructions. Now you can see here in this picture, this is a picture of a sunflower. Now here I'm going to tell you some information about sunflower. Did you know sunflowers are the international symbol for nuclear disarmament? So this sunflower, it is an international symbol for nuclear disarmament. Why this flower? I'll tell you the reason. Sunflowers absorb pollutants including radioactive metals. It is the natural quality of the sunflowers. They absorb the pollutants, including the radioactive metals. That is why they are planted in toxic nuclear sites where they absorb the waste from the soil and water. The flowers are then collected and disposed of as a nuclear waste. They are disposed because they absorb completely. They are plugged and they are disposed as nuclear waste. So that sunflowers have been used to help clean up waste in many places. Now let us discuss more about NAM, that is Non-Alignment Movement. Non-Aligned Movement. India, it played a leading role as a beacon of third world countries. Now what is this new term? Third world countries. The word third world was originally coined at the times of Cold War. Listen carefully. The term Third World was coined or was framed at the time of Cold War. Now, what is this Cold War? Chill. I'll tell you what is Cold War as well. First, listen what is Third World countries. This term was made known or famous for during the period of during the period of Cold War. Cold War to distinguish those countries or to identify those countries that are neither aligned with West nor with the East communist blocs. That means the countries which did not join any of the superpowers were termed as third world countries. These countries became neutral. They remain neutral. India contributed significantly to the growth of movement, But here, the third world, that time it was used to identify the countries which did not join any of the superpowers. But now, today, the term is often used to describe the developing countries of Africa, Asia, and Australia. This term is used to describe the developing countries of different continents. Now, in today's world, India contributed significantly to the growth of movement. The first conference of non-aligned countries was held in 1961 at Belgrade. The term non-aligned was coined by V.K. Krishnamenon in 1953. Later, it was popularized by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1954 during a speech in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Non-aligned movement, short form NAM, can be explained as a policy of non-aligning with any power bloc, particularly the Western or communist bloc, not being a part of any of the super blocs. That is called non-aligned. This you can see here. This is the logo of NAM, NAM, non-aligned movement. Here you can see the founding members of non-alignment movement: Jawaharlal Nehru of India, Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia, Egypt's Gamal Nasser, Ghana Kwame Nkrumah, and Sukarno of Indonesia. These are the founding fathers of non-alignment movement. It was later popularized by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1954 during a speech in Colombo, Sri Lanka. The word NAM. NAM can be explained as a policy of non-aligning with any power bloc, particularly Western or communist bloc. Now let us know the principles of non-alignment. There are 5 principles of non-alignment. Now, before we proceed, let us discuss what is Cold War, isn't it? I use the word Cold War. Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension. It is referred to a period of political tension between the Soviet Union and United States and their respective allies. It is a period of political tension between the Soviet Union and United States and their respective allies. It is a state of conflict between the nations that does not involve direct military action. There was no fighting, no use of direct weapons. So we can say that it is a political hostility, or it involved propaganda or threats. So direct fight was not there using weapons. Indirect fighting which involved propaganda and threats, that is called Cold War. So now let us discuss the 5 principles of NAM. Mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. That is, we have to respect each other's sovereignty, the supreme power of ruling their country, mutual non-aggression, not interfering in domestic affairs of each other, equality and mutual benefit. For the benefit and development of the nation, they have to term up and they have to pair up, removing the differences, peaceful coexistence, not taking war as a solution for conflicts, but taking out the peaceful measures and ending up the problems or conflicts with negotiations or peace talks. So these are the 5 principles of non-alignment. The NAM group commands the largest membership next to United Nations Organization. As on today, we have 120 member states for this NAM. India advocated idealism by refusing to join either of the 2 camps during the Cold War. The virtual Non-Aligned Movement Contact Group Summit on United Against COVID through video conferencing was held recently. Recently in 2020, we had a NAM summit and the topic was fight against COVID, united fight against COVID-19. We all know that this 2020 was a period of pandemic, isn't it? Now also we are struggling to fight ourselves and we are struggling to come out from the pandemic. So the NAM summit was conducted recently through video conferencing and the topic was United Against COVID-19. The summit adopted a declaration underlining the importance of international solidarity in the fight against COVID-19. It wants to take out the measure and contribute in fighting against COVID-19. So this is a table which shows you the details of NAM summits. NAM summits. You can see here date, host country and host city. These are the 2 tables which will give you the details of NAM summits. You have these table in your textbook also, students. So I request you to please go through the textbook and check out the details of the NAM summits. Now let us discuss the features of non-alignment movement. It opposes Cold War and military alliances of the power blocs. So NAM itself means that you are not a part of power blocs. So it opposes Cold War. It does not promote Cold War. It does not promote propaganda. And it also refuses to join the power blocs. Now, it stands for acting independently in conducting international relations. Now, plays a major role in conducting the international relations. It stands to prevent an independent view of the world. Decisions based on national interest. It takes decisions based on the national interest, not on the particular interest or personal interest of a country or a continent. To secure peace and security in the international system, to secure peace and security and to maintain world order. That is also one of the important features of NAM. To foster economic development. The primary goal of NAM was to foster economic development, to see that the assistance is given to the underdeveloped countries also for their development, Now let us discuss achievements of NAM or contributions of NAM to the world. Non-aligned movement has helped in easing the tension between the 2 power blocs, Soviet Union and USA and its allies. It also contributed a lot to bringing an end to the Cold War. It opposed Cold War. NAM acted against the arms race of the superpowers during the time of Cold War by bringing the concept of disarmament. We all know that during the Second World War, two Japanese countries called Hiroshima and Nagasaki were completely destroyed. So this has given a new dimension to disarmament. So the concept of disarmament came in, and we all understood the intense need of disarmament to save the world countries from the scourge of war. NAM has supported the cause of international peace, justice, and freedom. It has solved many issues, and it has opposed all forms of injustice, including racial discrimination. It has solved the issue of Suez Crisis in 1956, the aggressive policies of Israel, and the unilateral American attack on Iraq. Now, it has advocated the creation of new international economic order based on greater economic cooperation and justice. In fact, the first UN conference on trade and development held in 1964 was largely a result of the efforts of non-aligned member countries. So it has started its course for the development of world. NAM has made the developed countries realize that the continued deprivation of the third world would negatively affect the global economy and their own prosperity. So here, NAM has a major role. It played a major role in the development of world countries. It has taken several decades to attain this stage. Now let us see the future vision of NAM. What else NAM wants to achieve? What are its new aims and goals? Reform and strengthen UNO. Reform and strengthen the United Nations Organization. Promote cooperation among the South Asian countries. Attain an equitable world order to maintain world peace and security. That is very important. Adhere to the principles of the movement, principles and objectives of the movements, to build common bargaining platform, that is to pave a way for nation self-determination and to sort out the issues with negotiations, focuses on emerging issues and the role of third world countries in world trade. It also has a lot of impact and lot of role to play in the development of third world countries. NAM member countries were able to receive economic aid and also technical assistance from the two super blocks. It was all because of NAM. NAM, it made the world aware of the dangerous implications of using of arms, and also it played a vital role in making the world understand that cooperation, mutual cooperation is very much needed for the mutual benefit and peaceful existence. It made the world realize and also made the world to think that colonialism is not needed. It in fact opposed colonialism and abolished colonialism. So let us see, what did we learn today? We have discussed foreign policy. We have discussed determinants of India's foreign policy, basic features of India's foreign policy. We discussed what is Panchshir, what is non-alignment movement, objectives of non-alignment movement, NAM summits, features of NAM, achievements of NAM, and future vision of NAM. I hope this session was very interesting for you students. If you have not followed anything in this, you can just take the support or you can just take the assistance from your textbook, and please watch the video again and again to have a thorough knowledge on this topic which I have discussed today. Thank you everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for elaborate explanation about India and India in association with the entire world. The various policies formulated. Thank you so much. Children, please revisit this session and prepare your own notes, visiting the session again and again. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you, everyone.